And yeah, Gen Z, it's literally reshaping the way brands engage, the way brands communicate, and the way we sell and buy. And for that, I would like to invite on stage Janira Planes from Hamlet Strategy Makers to share us her wisdom. Round of applause! Janira, the stage is yours.
Thank you, thank you. Well, thank you. I want to start off by addressing the elephant in the room, which is talking about generations, just because I have some colleagues who are very against that, and they're like, generations are dumb, generations don't serve any purpose, and it's a stupid thing to do. Well, let me tell you, I'm obsessed with generations, and particularly with Gen Z. And this is what we're going to talk about today, because I feel that it gives us a great framework to work through everything we have to do, and in particular to work through our communication. And just because of that. And also because I'm a former BuzzFeed kid lover, and I have some of you here in the audience are too, I wanted to start this off with a test, just to see or to ask yourselves if you're Gen Z or how far you are from being a Gen Z or not. This is always a bit controversial, but it's really funny, for me at least. So yeah, let's start off with that. The test is really simple. It's like, do you remember 9/11? Yes or no? Just answer it to yourselves. You probably just had a super quick answer to that. If your answer is yes, well, you're probably not Gen Z. We're gonna see why. And if the answer is no, you're definitely Gen Z, and there's no question about that. But the thing is, if your first phone was a touchscreen, then you're probably Gen Z, but you're gonna be on the bridge generation, which we're gonna talk about in a few seconds. Another picture I really like that really encapsulates the feeling of being Gen Z versus millennial is this picture of Addison Rae, which unless you've been living under a rock, you know who she is. She's like one of the greatest TikTokers. She was a really good friend of Charli D'Amelio and was part of the Hype House when TikTok was starting. And this is a picture of her with Miley Cyrus on a premiere, and not the actual Miley Cyrus, but just like some sort of poster of Miley Cyrus. And I love the tweet that said Gen Z versus millennial in picture form, right? Just because we think of Miley Cyrus as someone who's really young still, but in a way she's getting older, as we all are, right? And here we have the great let's say just show of that, right? The thing is, Addison Rae now is this young lady, right? Okay, that was the first pic that I wanted to show you all, guys, so that you could see the comparison. And then what I was telling you was the different let's say eras that are inside of Gen Zers, and how that makes you really think about how you have to differentiate yourself and really think of who you're talking to, because Gen Zers are as I said, getting older. I'm a Gen Z myself. I'm 27, and you don't see me being a teenager, right? And just having certain and specific behaviors that could be tied also to different eras of Gen Z, right? So what I said here is that depending on which era you are, or which Gen Z era you are, you have some answers and there's some keys in there. Another buzzword we have in here is the zeitgeist, which some of you might know, but it means the spirit of the times. And the spirit of the times is something really important to keep in mind when thinking about the different parts and the different generations, and especially the time that we're living. I was telling you that I would consider myself a bridge era Gen Z, just because of a specific set of requirements, which, first of all, I was aware of the digital transformation. I'm not 100% a native, let's say, digital human being. But at the same time, I can hardly remember not doing something without Google on my hands, right? Then there's the smartphone era Gen Z, which would be the one that now is around 20 years or something like that, which for them, smartphones are the usual. They've grew up with them. They have also graduated high school post-COVID, so they went to high school and they had all these Zooms and all these meetings with the professors. They had to really change around the way they would learn. Then there's also like the fact that they grew up with TikTok, so then we're gonna see there are so many specific like ways of communicating for them and formats, which we're gonna go into in a second. And then they also like grew up in college when Biden was the president in the case of the States. And in that moment, MAGA was the counterculture. There was this whole movement of anti-masking just because we were so tired of like the COVID protocols, lockdowns, etc. We can all remember that. And there's also like this rise of the proletariat that is called, Mike Solana calls it the proletariat, just because really what we're seeing now, and we're at the mobile, so like you might have felt that, is that tech bros are no longer lame. They're cool and they're celebrated, and we saw it on the inauguration the other day. Like we saw like all the Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, etc. They were like front of line in the inauguration and they were being celebrated. So that's something to keep in mind. And now we are also seeing this GPT era Zs. It's a made-up name, obviously. Like blame it on me. Like I didn't get it anywhere. And we could say that they are like the iPad kids, like the ones who know how to use something way easier and way faster than any of us here. They are still in high school, so like their behavior is really related with that. They're growing up with LLMs like ChatGPT and all the other like different program softwares we're seeing, and that's really happening to be one of the biggest dilemmas and debates they're going to be having these days. Like many of them already are posting TikTok saying, you know what, I decided not to use ChatGPT for my school homework because I want to develop critical thinking myself, which is like something really interesting because it's like being put on them the decision of whether or not they should use ChatGPT in order to solve their homework, because it's like, okay, yeah, if I use ChatGPT, I'm gonna get this all done and over in a second. But if I don't, I might get more intelligent or develop more critical thinking skills, right? Which is something interesting to keep in mind. And also, another interesting thing is that the GPTs, Gen Zs, they're gonna be the bridge era between Gen Z and Gen Alpha, which as of now we're starting to talk, and like many people in marketing medias, we talk about Gen Alpha, but we don't really know how Gen Alpha is going to behave, which programs are they going to use, softwares, hardwares, etc. Right? We just have some clues, and they're right here. So with that being said, we really see that there's so many differences between them. There's some behaviors that are similar, or there's a certain like cultural context that's shared. But the thing is, we really focus on younger people because usually they're the ones driving like technology adoption forward, just because like probably they have more time. They probably are, in a way, they don't have so many constraints, or they can just do it because they're curious and they think it's fun, right? To try new things and to differentiate themselves from not only their parents, but even like their brothers and sisters, right? However, there's something in common with these three generations, and that is that social media and the internet are just other layers of reality. Long gone are the days where people were like, oh no, you should focus on real life, leave your phone, don't go on social media, which is like, okay, that's like a really boomer thing to say, first of all. And then like social media and real life are exactly the same. Like the consequences exist, the data centers that exist, we're seeing them all over mobile. Like they have to refresh all the data centers in order for us to be able to use it. So in a way, just by user-based consumer and like behavior, it's like another layer and another thing of the daily lives. And also physically, there's some effects and there's some very real reactions, right? With that being said, social media, something really important to keep in mind. Obviously, nothing new you're learning here, but these are the three pillars that we were seeing before and that are really important also when it comes to Gen Z. The first one is this extremely online tone of voice, which is basically like developing another language and being able to like really see the ins and outs of the social media post and the things that you see online and that you read. We're gonna get into detail with like many of the words you see here, but obviously authenticity, as we were saying, is like top number one. There's also a lot of irony when it comes to the publications, the way we see life, and also like memes and performance, being that something online is always exaggerated and there's not a lot of nuance, and there's so many things that can be like really, like you can deep dive and you can see that nothing's really that, that harsh or that impactful, but in a way on social media it is. Then there's the formats, which obviously when it comes to formats, I'm referring to like stuff that you also might consume, which is micro entertainment, like that can be TikTok videos, or that can be carousels or memes or different ways of communicating. Formats are like one of the parts or one of the central pillars of how to communicate to Gen Z and how to sell to them. And then also, we cannot forget ever platforms. As Marshall McLuhan said, like the medium is the message, and usually the platform you're working with is gonna make you adapt and make you create several or different types of content, right? So in that case, user-generated content is becoming super important for brands too, and like this is something that brands don't have a lot of control over most of the time. Then something you might have seen too, or you might have experienced with your companies too, is that TikTok and Instagram and social media is the place where particularly young people go to search for stuff. Like if I tell you the name of a celebrity, my friends are gonna go on TikTok or on Instagram to see how they portray themselves online. They're probably not gonna go on Google. And this is changing the way we search for things too, right? Like sometimes, think about how you search for information. You probably either go on Google if you're Gen Z or younger, or you're extremely online, which is one of the things that are also possible here. You go on social media, and if you're one of these people who like relies on ChatGPT for everything, you're gonna go ask ChatGPT and like see what it tells you, and you're gonna have a bit of a conversation, or Claude or DeepSeek or whatever you use, right? That's a social colleague rate. And when it comes to buying and the experience of buying, there's also like three different pillars or three different keys that really make a difference too. First of all, obviously we love shopping and the fact that the shopping experience is extremely frictionless. We want stuff yesterday at our homes, right? And we're seeing that with Amazon, obviously, with many other platforms like Temu, or we're seeing it with platforms like Shein and all these platforms. But as of now, TikTok has introduced also TikTok Shop, which really mixes in the format and like the let's say like this frictionless experience of buying something, and then like you bought it so fast, by the next day you kind of regret it, but then you already bought it, so it's like, and it's almost at your place, so it's like done deal, right? Then there's also the fact that you can curate your shopping experience with through apps like Vinted, for instance. But if you really want to know how to find the perfect, let's say, garment or the perfect vintage, whatever thing that you're looking for, you're going to go and you're going to see many videos posted online that talk about how to optimize that experience, right? Or how to have the perfect vintage, how to find the best vintage garments or the best like designer items before everyone else. And that's like almost like getting a master's degree in shopping, right, online. And then there's also the third, let's say, part, which is shopping has to be an expansive experience. And as a brand, you have to think that once you have set the foundation of your brand, of your company, how can you make the world and the universe of your brand bigger through the physical aspect of shopping, right? And there's some examples of companies. This example is one from Nude Project, which is a brand that's doing numbers with teenagers here in Spain and all over Europe, in where basically you go into the shop and you see books and you see music and you see you sense a certain smell, which are all things extremely curated by the founders of the brand in order to like transmit that brand to the consumers, right? And it's also a way of saying, okay, if like I think of Nude Project, I think of these artists and of this music and of this sort of vibe and this sort of like even like furniture in the store, right? Those are both things. And then when it comes to actionable tips, that's why I wanted to show you guys the pictures and everything. Usually people are like, okay, you talk about authenticity, you talk about irony, you talk about all of this. How do I put it into practice, right? Or how can I make this happen for my company? The thing here is obviously, first of all, like take risk, try, and like just fail more times and fail harder, which is gonna be the first step. But we're gonna get into 5 things that I think are key and 5 examples that really work. First of all, we said be authentic. Gen Z is an authentic generation just because everything we do and the environment and everything and the fastness of our everyday life makes us be authentic. So how can you be that as a brand? There's some things that can be easier than others, but first one, I think that the greatest example here and like something that has made other founders follow suit is, for instance, how Brian Chesky, founder of Airbnb, posts and communicates online. He obviously might have like a team and everything, so like you can always get a bigger communication teams, but you can do it also on your own. In this case, Brian Chesky always posts whatever update the app is doing on his own social media. So it's like Airbnb posts the update, he posts the update. Usually his update does way better numbers than the company's social media channels, which is fine and it's normal just because we really seek for people and there's this authenticity in the founder being the one that communicates all these changes. And he's usually also like, not in this tweet, but he's sometimes like, we really listen to you, and these are all the changes that we're bringing to Airbnb, right? So like there's this mix of language and how to talk to, and there's also like this really taking care of your customer base here. Then I don't know how many fans of the White Lotus are here, but basically HBO the other day when they had to release the trailer of the series and the TV show, they were like, what are we gonna do? Are we gonna post the trailer in our social media accounts like everyone does? Or are we gonna quote tweet someone's tweet that's really saying, how nice is it when it's Friday or it's Monday and there's a new episode of your favorite TV show? So they took the latter option and they were like, hey, you know what? At Bobby, whatever, it's about to be slightly nicer to be alive just because the White Lotus is coming on HBO, right? So this is a simple way of tweaking it and also being more authentic when it comes to communicating. And then I wanted to mention also Emma Chamberlain, who was in one of the pictures before, just because she was the influencer and the content creator who really, let's say, who really was the first to be super authentic on camera, to not have a lot of, of fear of how to appear. She would appear with breakouts in her face. She was having a mental breakdown. She was talking about how bad of a time she was having. And that's what really made the audience stay. And that's what really made people connect with her, because she was relatable. So she's like really authenticity in person, or someone to really look up for this. Then when it comes to being ironic and being playful, this obviously has the irony can have different temperatures when it comes to communication and how you talk as a brand. I'm going to show the 3 most extreme cases and the 3 that you might know, some of them, and like they are really great examples when it comes to communicating through irony and through being playful. First one is Duolingo. I don't know how many of you here are taking lessons on the app, but like the app constantly reminds you through these notifications of, hey, come do your lesson today, and the owl is constantly on your phone, being super annoying, right? So instead of like apologizing for that on their social media, they were like, you know what? Let's just really lean into that and let's be super performative and exaggerated on that. Let's create a mascot of the owl and let's run our social media like that, you know, like personifying the owl and making the owl be the one that's really telling you to just do your French lesson for now, right? Then Ryanair, again, if you've ever been on a Ryanair plane, not the greatest experience ever. They know that and they play into that. And it's also like the fact that you have to pay for any small upgrade that you want with the airline is also something that instead of being ashamed and instead of being like, okay, we're gonna change that, they're like, no. Let's just make fun of people and like let's just quote a video of someone saying I wanted the window seat, and let's say, hey, if you want the window seat, you're gonna have to pay 20 euros more for that. How about that, right? And then the last one, it's a really great example from here, from Spain. The KFC account is really the blueprint for shit posting, really on social media, and particularly on Twitter or X. And I don't know, some of you might get it, some of you might find it funny, this chicken leg with Eduardo just written down. Some of you might not even, might be like, what the fuck is that? Sorry. But the thing is, that shit posting and that speaking to a particular community, and that really is a way of being ironic and playful, because not everyone needs to get your content, needs to get your communication style and whatever you're saying. Which bring us to, you have to develop a distinct language as a brand and as a company too, you know. I think that the example that's best is this one from Starbucks, in which they could be saying like, hey, do you want to have like a skimmed milk latte or a skimmed milk decaf coffee or whatever? But instead they were like, no, you know what? We're going to create our own language and we're going to call it skinny latte, you know? And everyone's going to start calling our, our lattes that are with like this skim milk, skinny lattes, and this whole other kind of like language they use for their products. In here you have one risk, which is like some people might not understand what you're talking about because they're not deep enough into your brand universe, but the ones who get it are gonna get it and they're gonna love it, and it's a way of creating this sort of like cult following. Then we also have to keep in mind also that Gen Z is like the generation that constantly creates different lingo and different words, and you might have read all these articles that are telling people like, what does RIS mean, and what does aura mean, and what does whatever protein maxing mean, right? So it's like just a way of talking, of speaking, and of differentiating ourselves that we have to, and especially through social media, that's being like pushed more towards. So like another reason on how to leverage that language and also try and learn that language and understand it, or have someone in your team who can also speak that language. And then memes, which are usually decontextualized sometimes from pieces of media that are not created to be funny or to be particularly ironic, but in a way it just happens. Like this is the latest one that has been viral, which is like a screenshot of Doechi's "The Nile is a River" video clip, and everyone's like citing it with their own context and ideas and jokes, and it's like already expired because like so many people did that joke, but in a way it's also something to keep in mind, right? Then also, like, many people are like, okay, so social media is only to, have fun, to like be ironic, to post memes, and it's like, no, social media can be so many things, but in particularly it has to be either one or another thing, which is it has to either be entertaining or it has to be informative or useful in a way, right? So, and if it can be entertaining and fun at the same time, that's like top notch, but it's sometimes really hard to do it, right? I was talking about Nude Project before, and the company, like the store they have, and how they create a world around their brand. They've been the ones who have been able to do it also through their podcast. They're not the only brand who has a podcast, but in a way, they are really good at getting to their target. Again, if you're not their target, you might listen to the podcast and be like, okay, this is not for me. But teenagers who listen to them really look up to them. And what's really striking about this is that teenagers nowadays, when they're asked about what kind of company they want to create, some or most of them really say, I want to create a nude project, instead of saying I want to create like a Zara, or I want to be Amancio Ortega or someone like that, So that has really made a mark into society here. Then there's also New York Times opinion videos, which they have been putting out these past months like crazy. And the thing is, these videos last like 10 minutes each or something like that. Like usually a TikTok has to be between 20 and 40 seconds in order to be engaging and in order for people to really want to watch it. But with these videos, many people are like, did you fix my attention span? Because I just watched 10 minutes of this and I really enjoyed it and I really liked it, right? And then the last one is also like, I feel like this is one of the communities that really makes things useful for everyone, which at the same time is both entertaining and both informative, which is the Clean Talk community, which in a way, sometimes you see people like over cleaning their places, and it's like, that's not really super useful, because like no one cleans like that, or no one needs to clean like that. But at the same time, like you have this content that's highly engaging. There's also like a bit of ASMR going on there. And yeah, it's really another one of the greatest examples of how to make content useful in order to be engaging and connect with your audience. And the last one is building and speaking for your community. Community means like a group of people that share interests. And in this case, the good thing about a community is that it doesn't have to be really based on the generation that's behind it, but more based on the interest of these people, right? So in this case, some of you might know me because I formerly worked at Wola. Wola is an edtech that's really directed to Gen Z students as of now. Like in a few years, it's going to be alpha students. But we really spoke to students, and everything we did, every single content that we posted was really speaking to them. Then Red Bull is obviously one of the blueprints and the examples everyone like really talks about, which they not only speak about energy drinks, but they speak to this community of adventurers and people who do really extreme sports that are part of their community. And all their content is not so much product-based, but it's more like based on actions and on like these challenges that they do, and like this, everything that they take part on. And then you have a creator like Brenda Hashtag, who, if you're a fashion junkie, you might follow her because she constantly posts stuff talking about fashion and talking about the ins and outs and the behind the scenes of some of the fashion shows she goes to. And she really speaks to this community of fashion junkies. Like, if you don't care about fashion, you're not gonna like following her. But if you do, it's really, really amazing to do so. Which brings us to the last advice here, which is stop focusing on your competitors and really see what creators are doing. Because creators are usually the ones that are taking risks and being able to like experiment with formats, with ways of speaking, with different tones of voice. And the thing is, when you follow creators and you see that, let's say, they are the first one to post their TikTok video on Reels or on Shorts YouTube, or they are the first ones to do a live video and stuff like that, you get an endless source of inspiration as a company, as a brand, or even as an individual. So that's that. Thank you. And now turn for any questions that can be left over here. Yeah, I don't know if anyone has a question or if we're running out of time. Okay.
Seems to be working. Thanks for your sharing, much appreciated. I'm curious, what do you feel are products or experiences that are needed, that are lacking in the European market for Gen Z at this stage? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I feel like I would either say something that's very technological based, like a software that's like faster or greater than any other that exists, or in the other way, something that's extremely like analog, like an experience in order to help you connect with other people and to create a community, to find new friends. Because I feel like obviously, like the apps that are targeted to that are not working that well because they feel like it's a forced thing. So like places of being able to meet your community and talk and be in person, I feel like they are needed more and more. And when it comes to technology, I guess like the same that everyone needs, right? Like there's something that's faster and like easier and that in a way also consumes less energy than anything else that's more efficient, I guess. Thank you.
Thank you. I love it.
How do you use the algorithms in your favor with social media?
I would say first of all, really take care of your algorithm, like from a user-based perspective, like really curate what you want to watch and really like the stuff that you're liking and don't interact with stuff that you're hating or with stuff that you don't really want to see more of. Because if you interact, you're going to see more of that because the algorithm is going to understand that you like it. And when it comes to a brand, I would say really see how, as I was saying, how creators post and which keywords do they use or which topics they are covering, because I feel like that's something you as a brand can really hop on to and give your perspective and really like be part of that stream of like videos or content that the algorithm is choosing to show to other people, other users. Sure if there's any more questions. If not, like I'm gonna be around here. We can talk. And thank you very much for being here, for listening, and sorry for the brief interruption we had. Yeah, thank you. Have a great mobile.